After 5 years of waiting, we finally have the follow-up to Astroworld. Utopia by Travis Scott is finally here. And guys, before we jump into this review, if you do want to catch our first ever reaction to this album that we had with our entire community on Patreon, the link's available in the pinned comment or in our description. But let's get into this. So much hype going into this album.
Absolutely.
Let's get started with the artist performance. What did you think?
Well, listen, I want to say this. Thank you guys for a wonderful night on Friday. It was absolutely amazing bumping this album with the entire community. It's been an incredible weekend of listening. And honestly, as I continued to listen to this album, I realized how much effort Travis Scott put into his artist performance, going into so many different songs. You're getting these old DBR and Alfaro vibes. And it's crazy because some of these performances were apparently even created back in 2013 and 2014 when he was just kickstarting his career. And what's interesting is that I feel like Travis Scott is not only rapping his ass off for the majority of this actual album, but there's so many types of different performances where I never heard that in his catalog. So example, the first one I want to reference is My Eyes.
Yep.
When you go into My Eyes, what's interesting is that Travis Scott is trying out this very new flow for his catalog, and he's using these vocal effects, and I feel like he's making very good use of them. And then once the production starts to switch, you see him kind of jump into a quicker flow, and all of that to say from My Eyes and everything else, I feel like what's cool is that Travis is very dynamic. He's able to write out his beats and his melodies with perfection, whether it be something like My Eyes or even something a bit more, let's say, hippity hop, like a modern jam, for example. So where do you think he strived within his performance?
Yeah, going back to My Eyes, I think that was one of the examples where he's showing us that he wants to be vocally ambitious, and it was cool to see him have those higher pitched vocal inflections that reminded people a lot of Frank Ocean off a song like Nikes, where he did the pitch shifting as well. And you're getting him, getting pitched high, but also pitched low. So it's cool to see him play around with his vocal effects because he is the master of auto-tune, of having that signature crooning. So it was cool to see him experiment with it. Apart from that, like you were saying, this is maybe the best rapping performances you'll find in Travis's entire career. I love how hungry he is, especially on a song like Hyaena, or however the fuck you pronounce it.
We'll just call it Hyaena for the sake of it.
When you go to like the second half of the second verse, he has this flow switch where he ends up rapping ahead of the drums and the flow really accelerates, and it reminds me of the Prayer off of DBR.
Yes, absolutely.
Which is absolutely stunning as a vocal performances, and you get more of those that are in the same energy on something like a Sirens or a Schizo.
So I want to talk about Schizo because I feel like that's one of the best performances on the entire album, in my opinion, because you get the first verse from Travis Scott, and then you transition into your Young Thug portion, and then after that, the beat comes back for Travis to attack it. And like you were saying, where he's kind of using that super speedy flow, I feel like that's always nice to get. Also on something like Thank God, for example, when you get those quicker drums on the second portion of the production, he's able to match those tempos absolutely perfectly. Even something like a Lost Forever, let's say, when he's being a bit more, let's say, darker, when he's being a bit more, I would say, mysterious
okay.
and menacing, if that makes sense to you. I love those cadences from Travis Scott because it perfectly meshes in with the production. And man, I cannot wait to get to the production aspect of this review.
Yeah,
but
it's
overall,
low-key the best part of the album is the production, so it's gonna be cool to get into. But yeah, I love the fact too that like Travis decided to be the centerpiece of the album on a lot of these songs. If you go to something, for example, like a Meltdown or a Lost Forever or a Schizo, he's doing the heavy lifting. He has the most runtime on a lot of these tracks, and I thought that was cool to see him be the captain of the ship, because oftentimes there's this criticism of, oh, his features are carrying him, or
No, never.
Yeah, I love the fact that he really took the main control of the album on most of these tracks.
What's also cool is I feel like he also gives you these euphoric sort of performances on something like a Parasail, for example, where he's really using these mellowed out vocals to get you more entranced into the production. And I feel like that's a skill on its own, because what he allows you to do is that it almost feels like his voice is being used as sort of like a bass line or a synth for the actual production, and you don't understand how it makes sense, but you're like, wow, this actually adds to the beat itself, and it makes me appreciate what he's able to do.
And speaking of the melodies, it was just interesting because I feel like Utopia, unlike some of his other projects, is not an album that has the most memorable hooks, with the exception of something like I Know, which has a really addictive melody for that hook that's super repetitive and catchy. But then you also go into something like Telekinesis that also has a soothing hook with really ethereal auto-crooning. But for the most part, it's not like he's trying to get these radio-friendly hooks that are really gonna, lock themselves into people's heads. And I thought that was
cool. That was really cool because I was also having this conversation with Nick in the car the other night when we were bumping the album again, and he kind of made this album for the boys, you know, like just he kind of strayed away from everything that's conventional for Travis Scott as far as a performance could go, gave the fans something new and refreshing, but also took you back to a time where you and I fell in love with Travis Scott in that 2013, 2014 phase where he was rapping his ass off on songs like Backyard and etc. Even something I like too is Love, where you get the second verse from Travis Scott and then you have those sort of like high tempo, high paced drums, and he's able to come back in and he absolutely slides in and through the beat. And I love those types of performances as well from Travis because those are more of the higher punch ones. You know?
And like as I was saying in the First Thoughts video, he didn't make this for the casuals. He didn't make this for the Astroworld fans. He made this for Travis Scott fans that have been there since day one, and that's who's gonna get rewarded out of this listen. And I think the last thing I want to say about his performance and his artistry overall on this album is just the fact that he proved once again to be a master curator. I think that he put together a theme within the sound of the album where it's the darkest soundscape that he's ever attacked, and he sort of like navigates towards his own personal dystopia as he's seeking utopia, which he sort of reaches towards the end of the track list on Telekinesis.
Not only that, but it's super cool because the way that he actually formatted the rollout of the album, you get something like K-pop and you think that the album's going to be kind of bubblegum or you think it's going to be lighter in tone, and then you go into this album and it's some of the darkest material that you'll ever get from Travis Scott. So amazing artist performance. I will say this though, the only performance I wasn't that big of a fan of, and I know you guys absolutely love this song, is Utopia Twins, with the whole like jet ski sort of thing. I like the final verse.
Awful hook.
I will say that, but the hook is really not that great. And K-pop it's a good performance for Travis. It's nothing too special. So I feel like maybe those are like the only weaknesses, quote unquote, even if they are weaknesses.
Yeah, to me, it's K-pop and like Del Resto, where he sort of took a backseat and has forgettable performances to me, as well as Utopia Twins. Like I said, fucking awful hook. Only saves himself and redeems himself with that last verse. But let's go into the features, because when it comes to any Travis Scott album, one of the biggest talking points is the Avengers-like team that he assembles to go alongside himself in these journeys. And I love the fact that just like Astroworld, he kept the features hidden. He left us with this experience that was unpredictable, full of surprises. And especially for that first listen, it makes for these unforgettable moments where you're live reacting to Playboi Carti on Fiend, for example. Fucking mind blown.
Okay, so let me ask you about that.
I want to go through the feature list, though.
Okay, go for it. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
we have Drake, we have Future, SZA, Beyonce, Young Thug, The Weeknd 2 times, Bad Bunny, 21 Savage 2 times, James Blake 2 times, Westside Gun, Kid Cudi, Justin Vernon, Rob 49, Young Lean, Tizo Touchdown, Sway Lee, Sampha, Casey, and more.
And
so
more.
Fucking stacked.
It's
what were you going to say, though?
It's a stacked feature list. Let's talk about Playboi Carti. I think that's the feature that everyone wants us to attack first, and it's for good reason. I will say this. I love this new voice he's using, bro. It's fucking sick. It's actually really good, and I'll give you the reason why, okay? It's so unconventional for Carti, and it's like, it's kind of new to my ear, and you can maybe hear it on like really old tracks that Carti used to lay down on SoundCloud.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. It's not familiar to me, bro.
You could hear with like that deeper sort of aspect to his voice, but bro, it's crazy. It's actually really good. I was never a big fan of the baby voice, to be quite honest with you, because it was a bit too high pitched for me, and it would kind of disengage me out of the track at times. But this is crazy. Like, you could also hear Playboi Carti in a much more, I would say, clear sort of tone. You feel like?
No, I disagree.
I think that's at least the way that I feel about it. I feel like I'm a lot more engaged as far as this feature goes, and just him having like the center of the hook is crazy, because you're in there, and I could guarantee you this is gonna go crazy at festivals.
I love the fact that it was a mystery to discover that it was Playboi Carti on Fiend, because the first thing I want to say is, as much as I love the hook, I feel like the voice on the hook is super indistinguishable, in the sense that you have no idea who the hell's on it. At one point I'm like, is this Travis? Is this somebody else? I didn't know. But then you get this new voice that you were talking about, where he unlocks this deep voice. Sounds like he's been smoking too many cigarettes to unlock it. But it was interesting just because, as much as it excited me for, Carti evolving and maybe presenting us with the voice that's going to be present on the next album, it left me sort of wanting more with more listens. It felt more and more underwhelming in the sense that it's more mumbled than he's ever sounded before, and I feel like I also feel like his flow is very disjointed. Go back and listen. I feel like as much as I love him on the hook, the verse was underwhelming to me.
No, never. I completely and utterly
but
disagree
let's
with
keep
you
on
that
going.
one.
Let's talk about
Tizo Touchdown. Okay, that's another feature that I wanted to talk about because I feel like he has one of the best features on the entire album on Modern Jam. You go through the outro, and you and I were looking at each other like, is that Andre 3K low key? And then
I didn't think it was 3 stacks.
the vocal inflection sounded super familiar, and they're like, no, Andre 3K wouldn't be here. And then you find out that it's Tizo Touchdown. I feel like he had a fantastic performance. I love the vocal effects, and I love all the inflections that he was able to provide with his voice, especially on the outro of things. Let's talk about Drake.
I got to talk about Tizo Touchdown because that's
Okay,
like low key my favorite feature on this entire album.
Is it your favorite, actually?
I think it is. I love the fact that he adds to like the old pop aesthetic that's going down on Modern Jam, and he comes in with like this operatic and whimsical cadence that sort of reminds me of like David Bowie or some other old pop acts like Philip Oakey, who's the lead singer for the Human League. You listen to a song like Don't You Want Me, go back and listen to it. It sounds like Tizo on Modern Jam, and I love the fact that it was this unexpected addition where you're like, where the fuck are these dramatic vocals coming from? But it was a welcomed addition and added so much personality to the song. But let's talk about Drake, which is the one I think that is the major talk of the town right now. Listen, when Drake starts off by rapping, tensions is definitely rising. You know he's about to unload the clip, or you know that he's on that duppy type of timing.
Oh, he is.
You know what I mean?
He is. And that's what's crazy is that he's also using this really cool cadence where it's almost like the ASMR version.
He's whispering.
It's crazy.
Menacing.
It's very menacing. And he kind of like goes in and out of that to a certain extent within his performance. Then he goes back to a regular pitch and then he starts whispering again. And I feel like that sort of a vocal performance kind of gets you a bit uneasy, you know, and I feel like that's what the Drake feature does, is that it's like that scary type of Drake, like that Free Smoke sort of Drake where he's calling out everyone.
I can't even compare it to Free Smoke just because I feel like...
No, I'm not saying it's a Free Smoke verse. I'm saying it's like it's that scary, dark Drake that you like to see on those types of productions.
To me, it's Drake out of his comfort zone. Like, this is a rare performance where he has like this murderous and threatening attitude, and again, the whispering cadence is one that we don't hear from him often, if ever. I can't even remember the last time I heard Drake do something like that. There could be another performance that is just slipping my mind, but sending direct shots at Pusha T, at Pharrell, that was interesting just because of how lethal it was, saying like, my schedule is out. If you want to pull up on me, I'm outside, bro. And even like rapping about like, if I wasn't for the Vogue lawsuit, I would have been at that Paris runway show for Louis Vuitton. Like, he's really trying to reignite the beef, which is crazy to me. And it's cool because Sicko Mode had a similar demeanor where he was getting, you know, very dangerous.
It's like he takes the center stage on one of the biggest albums of the decade and
makes a statement.
He uses it to make a statement, and I always find that very interesting. I mean,
amazing feature, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Killed it.
He kills it all the way through. The breath control is absolutely impeccable, and I wanted to actually hear more of Drake on that track, especially on the third beat switch.
When he's like, are you fucking crazy?
Yeah,
I'm like, we're getting another verse. Let's fucking hear it right now.
And then you get the Travis verse, which is actually really good as well, but I'm like, well, Drake would have probably sounded really nice on that as well. Okay, where do you want to go next?
Let's talk about Rob 49, who was introduced to a lot of people on Utopia Twins, and I feel like he has the same manic track presence as a YB, but it goes in one ear, it comes out the other. He's on there for like 20 seconds, raps about, you know, wanting to suck his girl's toes or smashing some Siamese twins, and I'm just like, why are we getting this? This was so uncalled for. The song itself is somewhat generic to me and doesn't have a role on the track list, but his performance in particular was just questionable to me.
Yeah, I didn't like the performance, but honestly, just shout out to him for making Utopia, bro. That's pretty fucking crazy. I was looking at it actually as soon as the album dropped just to see like what would be the unbiased climb in his monthlies. Bro, guy had like 700,000 monthlies, and he's a pretty big artist, but it's such a good look for him, and we're very happy for him from the team here, but as you said, it's not a great verse.
It's not a great verse.
It's not a great
21
verse.
Savage comes in and absolutely carries Utopia Twins.
21 Savage on Utopia as a whole was absolutely incredible. Talking about Utopia Twins, listen, comes in, and I think that he easily has the best part on that song, at least in my opinion.
Best punchlines on there.
Yes, that signature sort of like Savage mode 21 Savage that you always love to see, especially in 2023. And then you also get 21 Savage again until further notice, and I love this feature because it's a personal 21. Gets a bit romantic too as the verse starts to go through it. Up to you if you like it or not, but I really enjoyed it.
I thought it was a good performance, just didn't fit the song, in my opinion.
No, I disagree with you. You see, I like it. I think that it was actually needed towards the end of the track list. He had a good performance on it.
I don't think so. I would have rather have gotten to that crazy Travis verse at the end a bit sooner. I don't think like the runtime was merited because of the 21 verse. But let's talk about Young Thug, who came in on Schizo. And I love the fact that he matches Travis's energy right away. He picks up on the flow that was left behind. And it's just amazing because you're getting 3 dynamic flows from Thugger, and that's all you can ask from a quality Thugger versus that vocal flexibility.
Yeah, what's your favorite flow from him out of those 3? Because you have the one where he matches Travis's, and then he has more of like that stop and go flow where it's a bit more choppy. So what do you like the best out of all 3 of them?
I like the bling bling. I get a rush every time you see the diamonds. Like
writing out the melody,
writing out the Travis flow. For me.
I like.
What about you?
The stop and go.
The stop
really
and go.
Yeah,
okay.
where like he kind of pauses for a second, waits a second, goes back into his next line.
Fire.
Stops a second, goes back in. I feel like it sort of adds this unconventional feeling and flow to the track that makes you want to get back in and out of it, and it's really nice to see. So shout out Young Thug. Always shows out for a fantastic performance.
We gotta talk about our boy West Side Gun though. That's where we gotta go next.
Is it officially the best feature on the album?
I don't know, bro. It
might be the best feature on this album. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Such a dope feature. He's drilling us with the classic boom 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 ad libs, and I just love the fact that like he's simultaneously flexing his drip and his shooting accuracy, like only West Side Gun can do. You know what I mean? Like it's a really great verse. And
I'm going to read you some bars. Okay, I want you to go back to this part of the performance from him, all right? Daytona, different color face on the road, 10 on his head, he be dead by the morning. And then the way that he extends his vocals is so sick. And this was a feature that I needed to see. I'm being completely honest with you. We were talking about it in the pre-album stream. We're like, if West Side Gun does not make Lost Forever, the record's low-key a botch, in my opinion. It shouldn't just come out. And thank God West Side Gun made this album. I am so happy he's on here. But let's talk about The Weeknd. The Weeknd is a massive collaborator on this album. And
I don't want to spend too much time on K-pop just because we did speak about his performance there. But yeah, he shows up on Circus Maximus and has the show-stopping performance on that track, in my opinion. Absolutely love the vocal performance. Melodies were on point. And it was quality. What about you?
It was quality. I think that it's definitely the better performance out of K-pop, and I feel like it feels like a lot more conventional for The Weeknd. And I like it how they meshed in like The Weeknd with like that black skinhead Yeezus sort of vibe with the drums, and it kind of meshes really well together, which I didn't expect. But shout out to them. I think that was a great curation choice. Let's talk about Kid Cudi on Love. That was a massive feature for me because it takes me back to like a Man on the Moon 2 or like an In the Cuts sort of Kid Cudi where he's being like very precise with the flows that he's laying down. He's being very quick with the way that he fits in his words into certain lines. And I love that sort of manic energy from Kid Cudi because it adds a fast tempo to the track and it perfectly matches Travis.
Yeah, it sounded like cool, signature Kid Cudi. I like the fact that he stuck with the theme of the song, which was sort of embracing the love that you get from fans. And it was sort of standard to me. It didn't blow me away. It was a good feature, though. I think the last two we want to talk about, because we could talk about every single fucking feature, but that could be a fucking video on its own.
I'm going to
let's talk about Future and SZA.
Yeah, let's talk about the Future and SZA collaboration. I think that this is one of the strongest performances from both of them on the entire track list. More SZA, though. Low-key, I feel like SZA's outro was actually really good. You weren't a fan of the mixing on the vocals.
I wasn't huge on the mixing. It sounded like the SOS mixing where it sounds a bit grainy. I'm not sure if it's too much reverb or what it was exactly, but nonetheless, amazing performance. She just has these dreamy vocals that really sink you into the vibe of the track, and she also interpolates a similar flow to on like the last section of her part, very similar to Marvin's Room.
Oh, that's
She does like a little Marvin's Room interpolation, which is pretty cool.
I didn't catch on that.
And she even has a line where she says "Diamonds Dancing," so it was clearly, she clearly wanted to make reference to Drake there, which was pretty interesting.
That was awesome. You're getting your usual Hendrix sort of future, where
Yeah.
he's a bit more in his melodic bag, and he's on that sort of end. But okay, one more feature. I gotta sneak in one more. Is that fine with you?
Is it going to be Young Lean? Is it going to be James Blake?
Yeah, no, it's gonna be Young Lee. Well, listen, we've spoken about James Blake before on the podcast, and we've said, okay, we'll give some time to James Blake. James Blake was fantastic on the
Voice of an Angel.
Yeah, Voice of an
Come
Angel.
on.
There's nothing else to say about James Blake, but I really want to talk about Young Lean
Ouch,
because
we got to talk about Beyonce too, though. That was a huge fucking moment.
Okay, fine. Okay, so we'll start off with Young Lean and then
Yeah,
we'll go into Beyonce, okay? I love Young Lean's vocals on Parasail. I feel like it adds this beautiful, hazy, sort of like slurred out vibe to Parasail. Adds to the psychedelic aspect of the song itself. Perfect collaboration, in my opinion. And this is a collaboration I've been wanting to see for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, after we got Dubai Shit, where you had a psychedelic jam right there as well, I knew they were going to work well together in the future. And I love the fact that you have Young Lean's echoed vocals sort of just transcending you into this trippy atmosphere. So great decision to have him on Parasail. But let's talk about Beyonce, who sounded really great on Del Resto. She has a short rap verse that sort of kicks off the song where she's flexing about her billions. And then she proceeds to have this exceptional vocal performance and one of the most powerful choruses on the entire album.
That's
I was
very
impressed.
true.
I was
Yeah,
impressed.
Beyonce did her thing as well. Listen, I think we're going to wrap up the features there. Did we actually get through everyone?
We didn't get through Sampha, who also had a short-lived but memorable part on Eyes.
Bon Iver, especially like Casey. They all did their thing as
Yeah.
a whole. But overall, I think I would go with great for the
I think the features were great. You had a couple of underwhelming ones, but also some superb features, and it's always a massive part of Travis Scott albums. But let's go on to the content, and listening to this album on fourth, fifth listen, I really wanted to get a grip of what Travis Scott was trying to express with this album. What were the major themes? What was he trying to, give off as the main central idea of Utopia? And I think that it's perfectly encapsulated with the little skit that goes on at the end of Sirens, where there's a conversation between Drake and his date, and the girl is like, I thought you were taking me to Utopia, which is like this perfect destination, but we're just in a hotel room. And he's like, this is perfect to me. Like, this is my Utopia. And I think that just puts light on the main theme that Utopia is a subjective state of mind and that you have to find it for yourself. And I just love the fact that Travis Scott is finding his own utopia as he navigates through fighting demons, fighting his vices, going through personal struggles like dealing with the aftermath of the Astroworld tragedy and so forth. And I feel like he reaches that on Telekinesis, where it's sort of a song about the rapture, where it's the second coming of Christ and he feels like he's being ascended up to heaven. Finding his utopia.
That was a crazy song concept. Another crazy song concept on the album for me is My Eyes. One of the best written songs on the entire album, and it's crazy because the way that Travis matches the content matter of the song with the production was perfectly executed, because he starts off the song with those like super like light and high pitched vocals, but if you actually go into the content matter, there's a lot of pain and struggle within the content matter, where he's talking about him not having love in his life regardless of all the materialistic stuff that he has. And then you get the more high-pitched and more godly sort of Travis Scott towards the end, where high-paced, I meant to say that, towards the end, where now he's flipping on its backside, where now he feels like he's back in the zone. He feels like everything's coming back to him, and it's this beautiful contrast of the yin and the yang in Travis Scott's life, and I love how that was displayed.
And it was cool to see him just express himself in real time. And even I know a lot of people wanted to see him, talk at length about the Astroworld tragedy, and he does give one line here where he raps, if they just knew what Scotty would do to jump off the stage and save him a child, the things I created become the most weighted. And he also goes into like being a hometown hero, and it was interesting to see him take that approach and show that remorse that he had for the situation. And at the end of the day, you don't get Travis being all that introspective all the time. And I feel like people have to understand that coming into Utopia, you're not going to get a thematic through line from one song to the next, because he's always been that guy to prioritize style over substance. You know what I mean? The guy that has too much flair to care. Like, that's just Travis Scott's MO. So if you went into this expecting the deepest writing and concepts, you're not really going to find that. Even though I do think that it is more poetic than most Travis Scott albums, at least in recent time, you're not going to get a poetic revelation from him either, where he's going super deep and introspective the whole way
there's
through.
a bunch of bars too that you guys could go over where he
There's
offers
cringy bars. I want to get through some, bro.
Yeah, I had a whole compilation video on my phone of all kinds of different bars on here, like calling himself Pinterest and just some other bars as well. You want to go through these? Go.
I like a bi girl on a bicycle. That was on Modern Chat. Another one. Deep in her throat till she tear. I'm her favorite beverage on Utopia Twins. And my favorite one possibly on Circus Maximus. I might still eat McDonald's, but I don't think I'm a Ronald. Like, bro. Just nonsensical bars that just kind of throw you off. And at the end of the day, like we said, Travis Scott's not Shakespeare. The themes are going to revolve around his vices, relationship songs.
I will say this:
him smashing hoes.
but the writing was somewhat consistent, though, to a certain extent.
A lot of messaging about God and him finding serenity within his faith.
Yeah, like it's not a complete shit show where you're just getting this senseless writing throughout the entire album. He had something to say on the project, and for most of the tracks, example, like you were saying on Telekinesis or My Eyes, you're getting these fleshed out concepts that actually sounds really good. And for the most part, he's really rapping his ass off. Going on to something like God's Country, for example, the whole thing of like the wings look like the butterfly coop. I hit the gas and I metamorph. Like I love those types of like Travis Scott vibes because he'll get you back into the track and it always keeps you engaged with the punchlines.
Absolutely. So I think the content overall is good.
It's good.
It's as good as it could be for a Travis Scott album, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah, you're not going to get too many cringy bars, but
No.
for the most part, you'll get good song concepts and you'll get memorable punchlines. You'll get him rapping his ass off. And listen, it's good for what it is.
It's good for what it is. But now let's go on to the production, the main spectacle of Utopia, in my opinion. And I think the first thing I want to address is the fact that it was so cool to see Travis Scott be hands-on with the production. He did produce 12 out of 19 songs on here.
I know.
The most I think he's done since Rodeo, if I'm not mistaken. So it's cool to see him be in the driver's seat and to see him sort of go back to where it all started and really soak in all of those Yeezus influences, which is where he sort of had his big break as a producer, working alongside Kanye West. I do want to go through the list of producers we have here. So many. Mike Dean, Wonder Girl, Hit Boy, Boy Wonder, Coleman, Vinyls, Kanye West, The Alchemist, Benny X, Metro Boomin, Pharrell, Take Heat, and so many more. The first thing I want to ask you about, though, before we get through some of the favorites, what did you think of the sequencing of this album? Because one of the main praises that Astroworld got was how well each song bled into each other. But I feel like that was a bit absent on here for the most part. So how did that affect the listening experience for you?
Okay, if we're doing a comparison game, it's obviously not as good as Astroworld, but it didn't bother me. I'm going to be completely honest with you, because if you go into every single production on this album, it's low-key his riskiest album when it comes to production, bro. It is so fun to listen to. One of the best soundscapes I've gotten in the past couple of years. I could say that confidently. This will probably go down as the best produced album of the year as well. I want to start off with our boy Coleman, bro. He absolutely ripped it all the way through, either on a song like I Know, either if it's a song like Meltdown, even something like Schizo, just these really dark strings and keys that add to the overall sort of horror aesthetic throughout the project. Shout out to our brother Coleman. You absolutely ripped it, bro. I know you're watching this right now.
Yeah, Coleman he came up with one of the most cinematic compositions that I've heard all year on Meltdown, where you have these ominous strings and you have these subtly sinister horns. And I love the fact that these elements sort of creep in and out of the production, and when they come back, they're even more frightening. And I love the fact that on Meltdown itself, which had amazing production all the way through, you had, with every beat switch, the tempo increasing and getting, more and more.
Did you pick up on the Star Wars beams, by the way?
Yeah, that was cool on Meltdown.
Crazy.
That was fire.
I feel like those little hints in the track list as well for me did really well. I want to talk about something like Fiend, for example. I feel like Travis's interpolation of the Rage sound really worked well here, because it didn't sound like a Playboi Carti ripoff. It sounded like his own version of it and something that would be able to be played at his own show. And that's what I like about the production, is that everything feels very close at home for Travis as a whole. And then once you get into the track Travis verse, once it continues to progress, you get this very, I don't know what sound it is. It's this very dark, atmospheric sort of melody in back, and Travis is just ripping it, and it just goes absolutely
This is on which song?
bonkers. This is on Fiend.
On Fiend, yeah.
As you know what sound I'm talking about? I can't put my finger on it though.
I feel like they were just really like high octane, like chiptune synths, but I could be mistaken.
No, I'll show you the sound.
Show me the sound.
It only bleeds in and out of the production at certain points once Travis is actually delivering his verses.
Interesting. But yeah.
Best beat. Okay, what's the best beat on the album?
The best beat on the album? Oh, man. It might be Hyaena for me. Hyaena or Schizo. I love Schizo as well just because the beat almost feels like it's schizophrenic in the sense that it's like these disorganized meshes of sounds, and with every single beat switch and all the random sort of streams of thought that Travis is having, it creates for this mind-altering experience. Favorite beat though overall, Hyaena is one of my favorites just because you have the chaotic drum pattern and you have like these creepy mandolin strings that are consistently pouring into the track with this jumping bass line, bro, that just feels so chaotic and so lively. So my favorite beat overall, I want to say probably Schizo, Meltdown, or Hyaena. Those are like the top three.
Yeah,
You?
those are in your top three. I got to bring it to Lost Forever, bro. I think it's still going to be Lost Forever. That first portion is incredible. And then after that, once you get The Alchemist on the second portion, it completely enhances the song. It's also because I've been able to sit so long with the actual song itself, and I've been able to marinate in it. But regardless, that's one of them. Same thing for something like Schizo and I Know. I love the dark, ominous trap sort of vibe that you get within those tracks as well. But I also want to show love to more of like the atmospheric and psychedelic production that you'll find on this album, like a Parasail, for example, or for like something like a My Eyes, where it just feels like you're floating, bro. Especially, okay, my production standout as well, I believe is also going to be on Sirens, when you get that vocal sample, and then at the end,
it starts glitching out.
It starts glitching out, and then it fully extends, and then it goes right into the Mike Dean intro. That was fucking crazy.
And I think
that was one of my favorite like moments on the entire album.
I think that's what we have to salute Travis for here, is the fact that this is progressive hip-hop at its finest, bro. You're getting elements of industrial hip-hop, of electronic music. You're getting psychedelic rock woven in here with a lot of the samples.
You're getting
that start
reggaeton,
off
you're
with
getting
the vocals.
dark trap, you're getting everything.
And I just feel like these compositions have these spiky edges to them where you'll reach one element that throws off the sound of the entire track. But I also love how much open space there is in these compositions, because that really allows you to lock into the grooves and truly soak in every single element. And that's something that you feel on Parasail, where it's like the production is patient. You're not getting these constant 808s that are slapping at you like you're getting in most mainstream albums. Like, these instrumentals are patient and they're deliberately paced out. And I thought that was genius. Boundary pushing hip hop from Travis Scott. He proves to have one of the best ears in the entire game, and for that reason, I think the production's amazing.
Yeah, the production was amazing. There's no doubt about it. I think it's one of the strongest components of the album. But let's talk about the replay value, man. So it's 5 years. It's been 5 years I've been waiting for this album. New Travis Scott has finally arrived, and I have not been able to put down this album. I am going back to so many different tracks. I love the fact that it's not going over 20 songs, 19. It's right there. It was perfect. That was a big concern for you and I. Was like, well, Mike Dean was hitting at the 24. He was hinting at that, with the IG posts. And then finally we get this really nice, focused track list that, yes, maybe some songs could have been left out, but for the most part, I feel like everything kind of had a place on the album. The only song that I feel like is maybe an outlier is, like we were talking about, K-pop, but even more and more that I do listen to it, I feel like it's kind of the guidance of the album to a certain extent. It's one of like those lighter outliers that has more of a reggaeton sort of vibe to it that you're able to get into and you just feel like you're vibing out to. So
I'm not vibing out to that one. But yeah.
I'm okay with K-pop, man. Listen, I think it's actually a good song. I have no problem with it.
Listen, we'll speak about it in the tier list that we do for every song on the album, which, by the way, is coming out soon if you're watching this at an early time. But yeah, my replay value with this album is going to be infinite, just like it is with every Travis Scott album, just because of how much passion he packed into this. And I mean, listen, maybe there's a couple of skips on the album for me, but out of 19 songs to have a track list that's as consistent as this, most rappers end up with bloat when you reach that 19, 20, 21 mark. And Travis Scott, he beat the bloat allegations with this one, gave us a really remarkable boundary-pushing album that requires further listens just for how layered each and every single song is. Amazing replay value, in my opinion.
Amazing replay value. It's not perfect because you do have like certain songs that you won't go back to.
Yeah.
So it cannot be considered perfect, low key. But regardless, though, I'm gonna have this album in rotation for a very long time. Travis Scott is offering you something that he's never done before, and I feel like that in itself is valuable. Well, actually, you can maybe make the argument that he was doing these types of sounds on DBR and Rodeo and Al Farrell in the old days, but with this new modern twist and the all-star cast of producers and features, absolutely not. I think that this is officially my favorite album of the year, low-key, right next to Scaring
Album of the Year
Host.
for you?
Album of the Year. It's right there next to Scaring the Host.
Is it next to it, or is it Album of the Year for you?
I'm going to say it's album of the year.
Okay.
I'm going to say it's album of the year. It's way too good of a listen, bro. Sonically, it's so advanced. It's just crazy in energy, and I'm going to have it in rotation all year. So let's get into the overall thoughts, at least on my end. The hype was real, and it was met, in my opinion. When you want to talk about Utopia, Travis Scott brought it to a whole different level, rapping-wise, on his end, just giving you these full fleshed-out verses and giving you that raw aggression that you come to Travis Scott for. I feel like it's an album that has records that I've never seen before in his catalog as well. And you could say that there was, let's say, remakes, like example of Love, that was made around that 2013, 2014 time. But regardless, though, the tracks were reworked and they were made to sound better in 2023. For the most part, I have extremely memorable tracks on here that I'm going to be taking out, like a Lost Forever, like a Schizo, like a My Eyes, etc. I love the track list, and man, officially my album for the summer, bro.
Yeah, I mean, listen, to me, this just feels like the album to reset hip-hop. Like, this is the reset that hip-hop needed, and it's just because Travis Scott is not trying to replicate his previous efforts. He's not hopping on any new trends or waves. He is applying these future sonics and taking from the past, but making it feel modern and making it feel unique and as creative as it possibly can. And I feel like not only does this album further cement Travis's legacy, but also Kanye's legacy, because it is definitely heavily inspired by Yeezus and by Kanye West's Donda era as well, where you have 3 different songs being Thank God, God's Country, as well as Telekinesis, that were initially meant for the Donda sessions. So I think you have to give a lot of praise to Kanye West here. And I think Travis Scott killed it, bro. He lived up to the hype, just like you said. And it feels like an intense acid trip. It's weird. It's uncomfortable at times, but there's something grabbing about it. It's a captivating listening experience that will not be, redone in 2023.
I don't think so.
Super singular experience. So overall, the album gets an amazing rating. One of the best of the year.
Absolutely. Amazing rating from NFR Podcast for Utopia. But guys, let us know in the comment section, where did we get it right? Where did we get it wrong? And listen, how do you guys feel about Utopia, baby? It's finally Utopia season. We're going to be having this album in rotation the entire summer. And guys, as I mentioned before, thank you so much for the reception and love on the live album reaction. You guys showed out. Was one of the greatest nights of my life as far as my NFR career goes. Incredible to rock out with everyone that was in there. And if you guys do want to see the live album reaction, go ahead. You guys could subscribe to the Patreon plan. It's available for you there. And we have a bunch of other live album reactions available for you there, like Dawn FM or Mr. Morale, Her Loss, Heroes and Villains. It's all in the catalog for you guys. So thank you so much for watching this. We appreciate you guys, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.